It's time for a positive moment in the show today.
We got another cue. I swear, like I started reading this when you were doing the initial intro, which is very rude. I'm terribly sorry.
Look, Dane, you're ruining the positivity. We are going to have a positive moment in the show today where we talk about all of the great lessons boomer parents imparted on their Zennial children.
They're not just the people that ruined the housing market and stole all the wealth, guys. They're also good parents sometimes.
Sometimes. You know, boomers weren't wrong about everything.
Look, I'm also not one of these, like me and Dane clash on this sometimes. I'm not one of those people that dunks on the boomers endlessly. Like, I'm just not. So
most of the boomers' children are around your age, Brett.
Yes.
So there's a subreddit dedicated to the so-called Zennials, who are somewhere between Gen X and Millennial. Most of them have boomer parents, so they decided to start a discussion about the best lessons that they learned being raised by baby boomers.
Do you got any personal favorites that you saw?
Oh,
Mine
yeah.
was the first one.
The first one is the best.
The best for sure.
He said, I'm 41. Both my parents were born in 1948. They've always been fairly liberal artsy types. And the best thing I learned from them is that racism, sexism, and homophobia is wrong. And we should all actively work to make the world a better place.
Wow.
Also, that societal expectations are arbitrary and that you should carve your own path and be yourself.
They
Buy
literally took those sayings at the end there off those like motivational posters in your school.
Unfortunately, he added the caveat that they weren't emotionally intelligent enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the rewriting of history that only liberal artsy types told you that you shouldn't hate somebody based on their race, which is just not true.
No, I'm pretty sure no one even
true.
needs to be taught that that's wrong, actually. It's just something that you're supposed to know.
Inherently no.
My mom was a liberal artsy type. My dad was not a liberal artsy type, and both of them instilled the values in me that you don't hate someone just because they look a certain way. It's completely rewriting history that's a value that only that group.
Aren't these the same people that say racism is taught? Like, whatever. On to a real note. One person said, positive, my dad worked harder than I ever have. Worked 24-hour days when it would snow, worked his regular job for 12 hours. Before the sun was up, he was back at his regular job. I'm so glad I don't have to do that. I feel terrible at times. I kept him up at night with my video games and other youthful BS. It gave me a work ethic like no other. If you want to own your own business, it's best if you don't have any quit in you.
That person has already set themselves apart from the average Zennial. By being an entrepreneur, you're going to have more of an abundance of gratitude for what you're doing, because as hard as you're working, you're doing it to build something of your own, and not having the worker bee mentality tends to be the type of person who doesn't complain as much.
Another one said, the best thing I learned from them was not to make excuses and to be independent.
From a boomer. Not to make excuses.
Independent. Yeah.
It's ironic,
What
right?
did I do to you? What did I do to you? Why are you mad at me?
Look, I just know that you're passionate about certain topics, and this is one of them.
Is this the picture you think of when you think of boomers?
Oh my goodness.
It's just two old hippie types playing Jenga?
For me, do you guys know the meme? It's the guy with the wine glass where he's like swirling it around.
Yeah.
And there's like this Spanish song playing in the back.
Oh, yes. Okay.
That's the boomer?
No, we think of the one we used for the picture, which is the guy at the computer.
It's called Hiding the Pain Harold.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I saw one the other day where it was the two, did they just look like bourgeoisie people with two glasses of wine? It says, these two old folks are voting for Kamala Harris, and all the comments are like, one more F you to the next generation on the way out.
Another one said, the bad probably being taught that my feelings didn't matter. I wasn't allowed to be sad or angry.
No, it's that you're allowed to. It's just you're not allowed to believe that the rest of the world has to give a crap.
See, this is why there's been this massive overcorrection into the gentle parenting archetype, where you have to pay intense attention to every fleeting emotion your child feels, even if they're 3 years old and they don't even know how they feel. You have to say, you know, your feelings are valid no matter what. And you attend to every little discomfort.
Hyper-narcissism. To the majority of the world, your feelings don't matter. they never will matter. And the best thing that you can do is learn to regulate what you're feeling and understand that you will very rarely, if ever, be validated for having certain emotions, because that's not the way the world works.
Just like most things, I think that the new generation of parents is making mistakes that are going to be corrected in the next generation. But the boomers had some things right, just not for the reasons they think. Because obviously the irony here is they emphasized hard work, like strong work ethic, don't make excuses, be independent, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But at the same time, they unwittingly grew up in the most abundant, privileged time period and era and place, if you're American, in human history, and thought that they earned all of it the whole time, and still seem to not have gotten the wake-up call that that's not what everyone else has experienced for the last few decades.
They retain the biggest wealth, and we gotta pay their retirement that we'll never get. I don't know. It's like,
I was born in 79, mom 55 and dad 49, so both boomers. The best thing I learned from them was not to make excuses and to be independent. They were not neglectful, but they weren't helicopter parents, and let me suffer the consequences of my actions when I messed up.
That's a good thing.
Yes, it is.
I like that in all these that they have their little jab in the end. It was like, listen, they kind of sucked, but I learned this.
Yeah, no one asked them about the worst lessons they learned. They just decided to add the negative at the end.
Yeah,
anyway.
this was like heavily edited. Certainly.
I learned how to budget, survive on a poverty level income and persevere no matter what is. A lot of this all seems to come back to like quit complaining and take responsibility for your own actions, which should not be a generational teaching technique.
Yeah, but that is lost on so many people now. Here's one that I knew would resonate with you. They said, instilling a strong work ethic is good, teaching us that we should work ourselves to the breaking point, put up with shitty bosses, and staying loyal to a company for life for piddling yearly increases, getting passed over for promotion due to office politics, for a company that will lay you off in a heartbeat, not good. Our generation seeks out therapy and work-life balance. Our parents just sucked it up until their hearts literally exploded.
You know, that's the thing I like the most about Gen Z. I feel that Gen Z has that avant-garde attitude where they use all the BS excuses to like get out of work, and honestly, sometimes it annoys me, but even you kind
of respect the hustle.
I completely respect it. At the end of the day, it'd be like, hey, it worked. I don't know.
Like, you know, it's an emphasis on work-life balance, but mostly life.
I'm big on work ethic. I'm big on the hustle is real. I'm big on like it will eventually be rewarded. So I love all those ones in the beginning. Like generally, I like all those ones in the beginning. Like I learned my work ethic, and I admired my father for, you know, working a lot, and he inspired me. I think that's what a man should be, honestly.
Not even just for that reason, but because before the Industrial Revolution, you either did it or you died.
Yeah.
Okay? And now there's this weird belief that it should be automatically provided to you either by the government or charity, and just because we've instilled stronger forms of social welfare does not mean that at the end of the day, you're still an animal that has to fight to survive. As a society, we actually prevent that from happening. It's the joke I make all the time. It's like literally, we care so much that we prevent Darwinism from even taking effect most of the time.
Something severely wrong must have happened with boomer parenting, though, for young people to be as unequipped as they are, especially when it comes to like knowing how to change a tire, doing like small fixes in their homes. Anything, making an appointment, calling ahead for a pizza delivery, like just basic stuff like that. So this was one that really threw me for a loop. He said, my parents taught me how to do things for myself. I knew how to fix minor things on my car, plumbing, electric. I could mow a lawn, grow some plants. They taught me to cook more than the bare bones. I could do laundry the right way. And my mom actually took time to teach me how to learn. And he's saying this, but the rest of what I hear about boomer parents is that they never taught their kids how to do any of the above.
You don't change your oil, you bring it to a mechanic. You bring it to an oil change service. You don't fix anything on your car. You take it to a mechanic.
Well, more likely than that is actually the boomer dads knew how to do all that stuff. They just didn't want
they could afford
to teach their kids how to do
Yeah.
it. For some reason. Why? Like, why is that like a trend specifically with boomers that they didn't want to teach their kids?
I mean, is there any proof that
things?
newer generations are doing that? Yeah, they are on YouTube and monetizing it by creating channels that allow people to do that. Like, is there any evidence that newer generations have fixed the errors of their parents? I don't seem to think
No,
so.
I don't think so
It's
either.
gotten worse, not better.
I'm just saying that's the starting point. And
Yeah.
the reason there's content like that out there to teach people how to do these basic tasks is just evidence that it wasn't common knowledge anymore because they weren't raised with it.
A lot of this is terrifying. Like, how are we gonna maintain the power grid? Like in
We're not.
2 generations. Like,
The skibbity toilet generation is not going to.
There's 350 million people. You'll find just enough people to maintain the power
Hopefully.
grid. This one you'll like. Learning to suck things up and move on rather than dwelling on them. I think they probably took it farther than they should with that. But as I see Gen Z being ruled by their trauma, and don't get me wrong, I love Gen Z. I'm glad I learned to just deal with stuff and press on when I need to.
Yeah, you don't need to reparent yourself.
No,
You don't need to cradle yourself and cry on TikTok.
Like I know, maybe it's all like hierarchy of needs. Like they don't know how to call for a pizza, but they definitely know how to call to set up an appointment with their therapist.
Interesting. Isn't
they
it?
have to know.
Like they value the therapy more than the pizza.
Yeah. They know how to do these things when it's
When you absolutely
fitting for their own ends.
when it comes down to it, like when you're forced into learning something, you retain it better.
It's exposure therapy. I going back to the friend topic, I tweeted about it, and this guy responded to me saying that he has very little social interaction. He doesn't know how to like form a relationship. He hasn't been dating, so he feels like he could use an AI friend to kind of ease him into the process of getting socialized again. And I told him like that is not going to help you in any way, shape, or form. What you really should do, if that guy is listening, what you really should do is just exposure therapy yourself. Like that's the only real form of therapy that does anything for you is exposure therapy. Throw yourself into the situation that scares you.
There was I don't remember what show I was watching.
Unless it's Knives.
I was watching a show.
Yeah, with certain exceptions.
Where like this girl who's having exactly that problem, she's not social, she doesn't do it. She tasks herself, or maybe it was a therapist in the movie that tasked her with every day just go up and say hi to like 5 strangers. Just in passing, start a conversation on a park bench with a stranger and just force yourself to get comfortable with talking to someone that you normally wouldn't talk to until you feel comfortable doing so.
Dude, that's crazy. That used to be me non-ironically. Like I was completely I would enter any room and leave with a friend about it. And I don't know how I got either beaten out of me or I that I don't see the worth in it anymore.
Well, it's also because other people are more antisocial than they used to be. They're kind of
Maybe.
going to put you off more likely than before.
Is it also possible that like the boomers did try to teach them and some kids just weren't listening and didn't care?
But that's when your kid mopes about having to learn a new skill, that's when you ignore them moping and you do it anyway because that's the right thing to do.
Make it playful, you know? I don't know.
You know? I don't know. It just doesn't add up to me that all of these millennials grew up not knowing how to do anything in their house. But so you guys had boomer parents, right?
Correct.
I did.
Okay.
I do.
I had one Gen X parent, one boomer parent. What would you say is the best lesson that you've learned from your boomer parents?
That's so on the spot. I
Can't come up with one? It's fine if you don't-
you're
if you don't
like
have one.
I mean I don't even know if it's like I can't even know if I can point to a point where this was actually like a value that was instilled in me, but since it is, I have to assume that I got it from my parents, and that's look, your life is your responsibility, and complaining about it, however valid you may think it, isn't going to get the problem fixed, and that you have to take care of yourself and those that you've, tasked with being in your life. So, take responsibility for yourself and your own actions. It's why I hate woe is me so much. It's like, I get the point of complaining about the boomers destroying all the things, and it doesn't make it wrong. Yes, the housing market is crap. Yes, the economy, blah, blah, blah. I'd rather, it's the argument, right? Guys want to focus on solutions. Like, I don't want to focus on what my problems are. I want to focus on what I can do to fix them. And I think that and being instilled with the sense of gratitude for what you do have, which is another thing. It's like, whether you like it or not, you've been born into unbelievable privilege just to live in America. Growing up in the 90s, you have it better than 90% of the world act like it.
Well, see, that's ending the show on a positive note. Yeah. I like that.
I'll ruin it. No, I'm kidding. My dad had a mantra that I've always enjoyed. It's like, a man's gonna do what a man's gonna do. And so usually when I'm in like my pithy despair, whatever era, it like reverberates in my mind. Well, a man's gonna do what a man's gonna do. And then like, whatever, I'll just do it.
Take care of it. Fix it.
All right. Let's
were you imparted any wisdom from?
Well, I have very unconventional parents. I feel like they wouldn't be representative of their generations. But I guess one thing, even if doing the thing where you give a firm handshake and hand them your resume printed on paper isn't effective nowadays, I guess one thing, just practically speaking, is that you should just form relationships as often as possible, and they're going to pay off in the future. And even if they don't, it's still worthwhile.
Dude, I think firm handshake is, it's literally my moral compass with men usually. Like,
yeah, 100%. Man to man, I understand that.
Yeah, well.
Feels a little silly to me.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.